In this video, I'm just gonna quickly go over my experiences, the journey that I had by learning the skill, by being able to read a book a day, speed reading, meta learning, focusing on the 20/80, learning from the best in the world, learning from their mistakes, and saving years of my life in the process. So, I'm gonna be going over my life story, basically. So, I started off in school. I was a normal kid. I was a really normal kid. I was the clown of the class. I just made everybody laugh, and I did it to fit in. But that really doesn't matter. Everybody had that at some point in their life. Some people get bullied. I was just the clown of the class to fit in because I was a full-time gamer. Of course, everybody games when he was younger. So I was a full-time gamer. I was #1 on some Counter-Strike servers, and I was a big fan of motivational videos and becoming the best gamer I could be by learning from my mistakes, etc. So I had that mindset, but I wasn't really doing anything with my life. I didn't believe that I could become a pro gamer, and I was just a full-time gamer, right? I woke up at 6 o'clock, gamed, and I went to sleep at 1 o'clock at night. So I had about 5 hours of sleep, and the rest of the day I just gamed and went to school. So I really didn't have any big vision or goals, and that was bad. That was incredibly bad. That was really bad. But I don't regret those times because I really had an amazing time with my friends, gaming, etc. But then at some point, I think it was around when I was 17 years old. When I was 17 years old, I was watching one motivational video like I always do, and it was talking about reading books. Okay, so I picked up a book. I actually went to a website. I went to a website, bought a book, got it delivered the next day, and the book was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Incredible book. So I started reading it, right? I'm sitting on a bench in a park, and I start reading the book. I go through it, page by page, not knowing anything about meta learning or speed reading. I was just going through the pages, and the stories that this book was telling hit me so hard. There was one story in particular about persistence that like turned a switch in me. That just turned a switch in my brain. And ever from that moment when I was reading that one sentence, I think it was about a girl and a blacksmith, and it was a black girl, and the blacksmith didn't want to give the black girl money, but the black girl was persistent, and at the end the blacksmith gave her money because she was so persistent, and the blacksmith even wanted to beat her because that was back in the day. There's a story in Think and Grow Rich about persistence if you want to look it up. But the moral of the story was the girl was so persistent that the blacksmith gave up and just gave her the money, even though she was a black girl back in the day when racism was all over the place. And that kind of just flipped the switch in me. So I started looking, right? I started learning a lot. The amount of I was gaming shrunk like in half from that day on. And then the other part I filled up with training, BJJ, MMA, and learning. So that was one major switch in my life when I started reading that one book, Think and Grow Rich. So from then on I started just gaming, training MMA, training BJJ, and learning. I wasn't working, I wasn't doing anything. Then after a while, about 6 months later, I said, I want to take this book thing serious. So I started looking up, and I came across this concept called meta reading and speed reading. So I took a lot of speed reading courses, I took a lot of meta learning courses, and I have my own viewpoint on speed. I have my own viewpoint on speed reading, but that's something I'll share in another video. But for now, I really got interested in these topics, and I was learning as much as I could. I didn't even game from that point. Gaming was just out of my life because I wanted to fill all that time up with learning. So I started doing that. I started learning about meta learning, learning how to learn metacognition, speed reading, etc. And that's when my life really started to change. And then 6 months after I started learning that skill, I was reading one book a day. I wasn't really even planning to read one book a day. I just started doing it because it was so easy for me. 15 minutes, finish one book. Boom, 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 boom. One book a day, one book a day. And the more books that I read, the more knowledge that I gained, the more that I implemented into my life, I saw a tremendous, tremendous impact on the person that I was, my social situations, my friends, my acquaintances, the people around me saw me changing incredibly rapidly. I had a vision, I had goals, I had everything. I was putting everything into action from the books. And up to this date now I have 2 businesses. We run events. We had 700 people show up at 2 of our events. That's just one of the things that happened. A lot more happened. And at some point I was reading these books, and I got incredibly interested in learning how to code. So I started learning how to code, right? But I was like, hey, I've been learning about how to learn. Why don't I apply this to software engineering? Because usually the path of software engineering is you go to school, you get a computer science degree, it takes you 4 to 6 years before you actually get an entry-level job. And I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. So what I started doing is I started applying every single concept that I knew about speed reading, meta learning, Pareto's Law 2080, focusing on the essential parts that you are going to use in your day-to-day life as a programmer. I started learning those things first. I wrote out a learning plan for how to become a software engineer in 8 months. And guess what? I got the job. I got a job at a startup as a lead developer. Because not only was I a great developer, but I was also a great person because of the persuasion books I read. And I was able to convince them to hire me because I was so confident. I read so many books, pitched anything from some guy, I don't remember his name, but that book actually gave me a big advantage. We actually had a Skype interview, so I started off as a lead developer at a startup, then I switched to another startup, then I did something else. But software engineer, I went from knowing almost nothing about coding to becoming a software engineer, to becoming a lead developer under a startup in 8 months. Usually people take 4 to 6 years to just get an entry-level job, but they are not even a lead developer. So that's just a quick introduction to the skill, the things that it helped me. It also helped me start my business because I wasn't afraid to start a business because I knew the exact plan. I knew the exact mistakes other people have made. I know the exact business plans because I was able to read 1 book a day, and it just got me started. I wasn't afraid anymore because I knew everything around me. I could go every path. I could go fitness, I could go marketing, I could go business, I could go consulting, I could do anything because I knew a lot about a different industry. So a lot of people call this jack of all trades, but I was just so into learning that I just kind of learned about anything. And now when I set my mind to something, I know the exact plan of execution to start executing on that. Like this online course, for example. I learned these 2 books. It's the same thing applied from a brick and mortar store, like Sam Walton with Walmart, etc. All of these biographies, all related to online marketing, internet marketing. So I started learning that space, and within a record time I started making online courses, and now we're here. So that was basically just the journey that I went through, a kind of introduction to this course, the kind of impact that being able to read 1 book a day, being able to do meta learning, being able to cut your time in half, being able to learn from the mistakes of other people, it's going to be a tremendous skill in your life. Learning how to learn in the information age we are in today is the most essential skill you can ever learn. If you are able to learn faster than most people around you, than basically 99% of the world, you are going to be a top performer in anything you set your mind to. Okay, so that was just a quick video sharing my journey, sharing my experience with meta learning, and the next videos I'm gonna go into detail about the different topics, and I'll see you guys in the next video.